Now, a lot of people have in their mind the perfectly sized whitetail deer hunting parcel. And let's face it, there's a lot of other recreational opportunity on that parcel. Depending on the family size, your activities, this might include a pond, dirt bike track, whatever it might be. But when it boils down to whitetail, I believe that a whitetail parcel, the perfect size, might be a lot smaller than you actually think. I've used an example right here. I just pulled up a random Onyx map from Iowa in an area. And this is a good illustration of large and small properties. Looks like there's property sizes on here that would be approaching 400 to 600 acres in size. And then certainly down to a 40-acre parcel. I believe there's a 20-acre parcel right next to it. But I wanted to talk about why a 40-acre parcel, maybe a 60 or an 80, and sometimes even down to a 20 or 30-acre parcel is the perfect size parcel to buy for your hunting land. And I've had to do recommendations of purchase. So someone will come to me and they'll say, I'm looking at this 300-acre parcel. What do you think? I'll come out and I'll spend a day with that person and we'll talk about the parcel, design the parcel as if they're going to buy it, and consider why they should buy it or not. Some of those recommendations, I'll look at a 300-acre piece in Northwest Illinois. It's worth $1.7 million. And I'll say, you know, I wouldn't mind buying a 40 to 80-acre parcel in Northwest Illinois, Southwest Wisconsin, and Northeast Iowa. Maybe have that option to hunt 3 states, all within close proximity of each other. And there's several reasons why I think that's a great idea. First of all, and we'll go through this, and we're going to end with this too, when you have a small parcel like that, I've experienced many times over with client parcels and my own hunting that you can target the mature bucks in the area, the best mature bucks in the area. And I believe you should be able to target those bucks and harvest those bucks, kill those bucks, shoot those bucks, whatever you want to call it, to a tune of 70, 80% success rate over a 10-year period. And it doesn't matter if there's 20 hunters around you. And I'm going to talk about the reasons why that can take place with a small parcel. Now, first off, with a 40-acre parcel, the beauty of that parcel is if you're surrounded by a lot of other parcels, then it doesn't take much for you to be, and we'll talk about this in another video, but it doesn't take much for you to be that parcel that the mature buck focus on in the entire neighborhood during the hunting season. And I'll give you some examples. Some pretty good blocks of timber in this area right here, in this area. Down through here is a nice waterway, nice block of woods and timber right here. Pretty easy to find this stuff. And if you look at these are all fragmented land types. Probably all different landowners are very similar. You can see the names are all different on here. What ends up happening with those fragmented chunks of land, and of course this is the 40 in the middle right here, the majority of people are overhunting their food plots. The majority of people are accessing the hunter lands poorly, so they're spooking deer. And the majority of people are basically setting themselves up with failure with habitat improvements before the season even begins. And it might be that failure meaning that they're targeting the mid-range bucks. If you put bucks on a scale 1 to 10 in your area, could be in certain areas that a 3-year-old is the top buck that you're going to see because of such fragmented lands. It could be in another area, 5, 6-year-old bucks and truly mature bucks are your target. But whatever area, you have those top 10 out of 10 bucks for your area. And someone might be happy shooting those 4, 5, 6 out of 10 bucks in that area. But if you really want to step up your game, there's very few people that are targeting and harvesting those high-end bucks on an annual basis, and you can do it with a small parcel. I'll give you a reason why. If these areas are all being overhunted, overpressured, don't have food sources on them, don't have food plots during the season, then those mature target bucks start to really hone in on the very few areas in the neighborhood that actually have those fall food sources and fall amounts of cover that allow you to hunt those bucks and attract those bucks and hold those bucks, especially as the season progresses and especially as it gets very into the very intense middle portions of the season. So it doesn't matter if a parcel is 40 acres or 100 acres, if you're the only one in the neighborhood, and most of the time people are. And it's not that people are bad hunters, they don't care. A lot of times it's just not them. They don't care to put into their land what it takes to be that top 10% of a landowner and have that top 10% of land. And let's face it, I believe, and we're talking about this again in another video, that only 5% of lands in an entire neighborhood hold the attention of mature bucks on their land. And so when you have a 40 acre or an 80 acre in the middle of a neighborhood that is the only parcel that not only has great food, great cover, but also has great access and has a low potential for spooking deer, then you have that parcel that can control the neighborhood because no one else is doing it. As a mature buck ages, the more he really needs that and seeks that and relies on that type of cover to actually bring him to the next year and have him get a year older. So those areas are few and far between, and it doesn't matter what size parcel you have, you can own that herd influencing parcel in the entire neighborhood. Now, one really big thing, and this is something I see all the time, is that when you have a larger parcel, you need to spend a lot more resources of time and money to make that parcel work. So you can't have dead spots. You can't have areas that aren't improved, that don't connect to each other, whether that's travel corridors, bedding areas, food sources, soft mass plantings, apple trees, acorns, chestnuts, whatever it might be, native grasses. You have to have that parcel connected. So you can't have this little chunk over here that's 20 acres on a 400 acre parcel, and this chunk over here that's 100 acres of goodness, and then this over here 40 acres. You still have a high percentage of your land that's not working for you. And so I'd rather see you take that same amount of improvement, and if you have 100 acres in you that you want to improve, or 150 acres of time and money that you can improve, then you're better off buying a 200 acre parcel than you are a 400 acre parcel, and having your resources of time and money stretched thin so that you can't get the most out of your parcel. Your improvements have to be connected. They have to relate to each other. There can't be dead spots and holes, because then you don't facilitate a mature buck movement and cross your entire acreage, where a buck can go from point A to point B, from corner to corner, from side to side, or wherever that big, large chunk contiguous area where you can have efficient acreage working for you. He doesn't have that, so then he leaves your property, or he only has one small corner and it's not enough. And so I'd rather see you buy half as much acreage if you can actually improve a high percentage of that acreage, at least 60 to 70%, where you can give that area to all deer all the time. That's your core area. That's your actual true sanctuary. A sanctuary isn't just where the deer bed. That's a common misconception. A sanctuary is actually where deer have the ability to feed, bed, move, hit your water holes, mock scrapes, and be outside of your hunter access and actually have an area where they can't see you, hear you, or smell you. If that area is broken, then, for example, you have a 40. If you say, well, this 15 on this side and this 15 on this side is going to be my sanctuary area, and you have a trail up through the middle that you have to use for every time you deer hunt, then the scent will blow out 150 yards on either side, let alone if the deer hear you or see you using that center access trail. So in a case like that, I've seen that, there's 0 acres left over for deer in areas where they can't see you, hear you, or smell you. When you connect those areas, the power of that connection and having a small parcel, even 40 acres, even 80 acres of working for you. And let's say it's 40 acres, you have 26 acres. I see a lot of 200 acre parcels that don't have 26 acres of core efficient acres working for that landowner so that they can hold, attract, shoot, hunt, mold the deer herd, and have quality mature bucks focusing on that property during the daylight. So think about your resources when you buy a property. It's not just how much you can afford for your land, it's how much time and money you can afford to continually maintain, take care of, build, and actually build a quality deer herd, build a quality hunt. And let's face it, you can't have one without the other. You can't have a great deer herd and then not have a great hunt. You can't have a great hunt and not have a great deer habitat. They go together. You can't have one without the other. Make sure that when you're paying for your land, you consider that, and you're much better off going half the size. Much better off getting a 40 instead of an 80, an 80 instead of a 160, if you can't afford to take care of that property. Now the last one, and this is really important. There's a lot of clients that I go to, a lot of landowners, that they have a large parcel. And it might be, let's say large meaning, half my clients are 60 acres or less on a given year. I have a lot of clients in the 300-400 range too. I've worked on lands up to 4,000. My average client's about 100 acres. I see a lot of lands that are between 100 and 200 acres that have CRP holdings where the grass lays down during the hunting season and does not hold any deer or any wildlife, especially all winter long too. And I see areas of managed forest where clients are trying to manage big timber, and for that they're not managing deer herds. They're not managing an effective deer herds because they have this giant hardwood piece that, I mean, let's face it, if you have hard maple and you have oak, cherry on your land, do you really want to cut that all down so you can create a clear cut and ruin tree production for the future? I'd rather just not buy that land. If there's a big CRP holdings that I have to manage based on CRP law, and I can't have that wildlife cover that actually attracts deer during the fall and the winter, let's face it, you don't build a deer herd during the summer. You can show me all the herbaceous growth, and I've seen even pictures online where people are cutting down box elder or aspen, and they're hacking, squirting, and they're talking about, look at the goldenrod that's coming up in here, and look at the ragweed, look at the clovers, look at the herbaceous growth and plants that are there. Folks, that's all food for summer. Deer already have several times more than they need during the summertime. So if you're cutting those trees and you're managing that timber and you're managing oak production, acorn production, at the expense of actually having true cover and true food during the fall and the winter, then you haven't accomplished anything except maybe some cool Instagram pictures and a story on Facebook. Other than that, if you're not putting those efforts towards the fall and towards the winter, when the deer and the wildlife and the local wildlife population need it the most, then you're going to have a really hard time on your property. And the problem is, I see whether it's CRP, managed timber stands, timber stand improvement, or maybe even giant ag parcels. So say, for example, an ag parcel, I'll see a client, they have 120 in woods and cover, and then they have 80 in ag. So what did that additional 80 acres actually give to you? Yeah, you can say, well, I get rent X amount of dollars per those 80 acres of farmland that I rent, but you would have been better off buying a smaller parcel and then actually being able to manipulate that smaller piece of ag land. I love ag land. If I buy a parcel that's 80 acres, I want 20 of it in ag land because I'm going to convert that 20 acres to wildlife and whitetail potential and cover and food, because that ag land is not going to do anything for you for your ability to mold and shape a deer herd. So consider those large chunks of fragmented, useless acreage, whether it's ag, timber stand improvement, or large portions of CRP that aren't working for your ultimate goal of wildlife and whitetail potential. So whether you're spreading your resources thin when it relates to time and money, you're fragmenting your parcel, or on the other hand, you're looking at a smaller, highly defined parcel that you can take advantage of the entire neighborhood spooking deer and giving you that opportunity to be that 5% landowner. That 5% landowner meaning you're that landowner that actually attracts and holds that cover that represents 5% or less in the entire whitetail neighborhood, that you can attract and hold mature bucks during the daylight, because there are very, very few parcels that actually attract and hold deer during the daylight. I want you to become a 5% landowner, but at the same time, consider the perfect size whitetail parcel. To me, the perfect size whitetail parcel is not 200 or 300 acres. I believe you can buy, and if you do it right, you can buy a 40-acre parcel, 60-acre parcel, and you can outcompete the entire neighborhood when it comes to actually producing the highest quality, most balanced deer herd in the neighborhood, and being the actually true herd influencer. Whether you want to shoot the bucks or not, a lot of people say, well, it's not all about shooting bucks. Well, then how about you just buy a 40 and you be the herd influencer? You be the one that actually holds and attracts them during the daylight, during the hunting season. You have that most balanced herd, that most balanced QDM herd, where you have those biological balances of population, age structure, sex ratios, and you own that parcel. No, it's not all about mature bucks, but hey, if you have it and you create that 40-acre parcel, and it can be done, that attracts all those bucks in the neighborhood to that one location, might as well hunt them. So think about that. You don't need 80 acres, 100 acres to have a great parcel. Think about these tips and how you can impact very small micro parcels and how you can actually influence the herd and hunt in your neighborhood.